actionfiguresresource.com.
Part 2. Next we have the Iron Grenadier, 1988, Series 7. I'm going to quote from this guy's file card because it's fairly hilarious, and by this point the writers had their tongues firmly in their cheeks. Imagine the slickest used car salesman you ever met. Now imagine he's also the trickiest accountant in the world. Got that? Try to picture what he would be like if the same guy was also a highly trained commander with expertise in explosives, small arms, and hand-to-hand combat. That's what the Iron Grenadier is. Their specialties are terrorism, sales, and marketing development. I think by this point Hammer and company were having a pop at Hasbro themselves, but it was these file cards that brought this series of figures to life, sowing a seed in the minds of the kids playing with them in ways often more vibrant and specific than the cartoon could muster. Destro's Iron Grenadier is exemplary of the kind of faceless foot soldier that Cobra was largely made up of. Like the Imperial Stormtrooper, they were cartoonish fascist jackboots who could be collected in multiples, thanks to the low price tag, to assemble an intimidatingly uniform opposing force. This particular figure is in superb condition, considering he's 25 years old, with tight limbs and bright unblemished paint, with a scary black shine to the armour. He cost me £3.53. Storm Shadow makes another appearance here with his version 2, 1988, Series 7. Finally, we get a Joe, or in this case a Cobra, with a ton of awesome accessories. He has a backpack into which you can slot his katana, a surprisingly detailed bow, and a Vegas-style claw. As it says on his file card, most people will tell you ninjas don't exist. That's exactly what ninjas want you to believe. Ninjas, it turned out, were instrumental in G.I. Joe's foothold in the toy market. Kids went nuts for them in the 80s, and they still love them now. This second version of Storm Shadow is a neat blend of ninja with Arctic Operations Commando in a practical, camouflaged outfit with a nicely textured climbing rope sculpted onto his body. On his right forearm you will find the famous Arishikage clan tattoo, which means one who is complete. It is given to the ninjas that pass, or rather survive, their rigorous years of training. I'm not ashamed to say I've considered getting this tattoo myself over the years. For some reason, the previous owner, or at least one of them, saw fit to squash blue tack onto the weapons to hold them in place, so some of the residue does remain. This is something I would like to discourage, even if it does make the figures easier to display. It's tantamount to vandalism. Due to his major popularity, excellent condition and full complement of accessories, this Storm Shadow set me back £5.50 plus postage. He's not by any means rare, but he is more desirable for collectors than the ones I've reviewed so far. And finally we have Snake Eyes, version 3, 1989, Series 8. Less well known than the version 2 that became the default favourite design, but modelled closer to the version 1 that was in the cartoon. This is thus a more articulated, detailed, better sculpted version of the one that emerged with the first ever figure assortment in 1982. This is probably the most recognisable Joe and the closest to being a household name, possibly because as a mute he retains a great mystery that the others lack, or possibly just because he's an awesome ninja. I'd guess it's actually a combination of the two. One of the greatest Snake Eyes stories of all time was issue number 21 of the original comic, published by Marvel in 1984, Silent Interlude, which Larry Hama cunningly wrote with 0 speech bubbles, emphasizing the powerful presence of the Silent Commando as he rescued one of the few female Joes, Scarlet. This issue is also notable for the first appearance of Storm Shadow and the first implied connection between the two. With a high-tech visor, utility harness, a holster at his right thigh, utility pouches at his upper arms, belt and left thigh, and 2 shiny ninja blades sculpted onto his chest, Snake Eyes will always seem like a one-man army, versatile, adaptable, and ready for any mission. A little hook on the back of his silenced Uzi serves as a zip-line connector for any child with a length of cord. His straight Chinese sword slots into his backpack, and he comes with a long and brutish-looking flail for nunchuck fighting. Through some stroke of luck, I've ended up with his wolf, Timber, which originally came packaged with the 1985 Series 4 version 2 Snake Eyes. I think I know who needs a 4-legged friend. All in all, this guy cost me £5.50 plus postage, which is a huge bargain for such a landmark character rendered so stylishly. Be sure to check out another of the G.I. Joe collector guides for a close look at the Sigma 6 version of this iconic character. Now, I never collected G.I. Joe as a child. I was into Star Wars and Masters of the Universe, and then Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, so it just sort of passed me by. To begin with, in 1982, we had Action Force, made by Palitoy, the company that produced Action Man as the European original G.I. Joe for Hasbro. Over the next few years, the line slowly blended into an introduction to the American Joes, but they were billed as international heroes until many years later. Even at an early age, I was aware of the disparity, and while there was a re-edited comic line with a different Action Force continuity, the cartoon was not shown over here, a sure way to stymie the toy sales. By the time they were properly G.I. Joe over here, I was at that weird teenage age where toy collecting was frowned upon, at least it was in the 90s. Reviewing these, I feel like not only I missed out, but the entirety of Britain. There's so much detail and character to be had here that would have been ably conveyed in the gung-ho multimedia operation the USA enjoyed. As a result, Joe will never be as popular in the UK because, unlike Transformers and the Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles, there are a lot less dads with fond memories to pass this on to their new generation of action figure collecting boys, and indeed girls. That doesn't mean that there are none of us though, and I'm happy to count myself among Joe fans. I may even have to take the plunge and get that Arishikage tattoo after all. Be sure to check out the other videos in this series, taking a close look at the original Joe and two that were inspired by both the classic soldier and the real American hero reincarnation. This has been Alex Shaw for Action Figure Resource.